won 40 fights. Now think about some of the stars that are out there today. How many of them have won 40 fights? And Freddie was a heck of a fighter. But he also was prone to cuts, shall we say. And his fights were exciting because bloodbath, he used to pack the showboat like nobody else. He had more appearances on ESPN than anyone else except, I think, Terrence Ali finally broke your record. And unbelievable fights. And the best thing about a Freddie Roach fight was to see the expression on his opponent when he would go back to the corner covered in blood. And he's asking his corner, like, "Fix me up, man, I'm cut." He said, "That's not you, that's Freddie's blood." Freddie, it's a pleasure to be here and part of the class of 2012. Michael Katz, I guess, thank God I didn't have to follow Michael Katz. How do you follow an act like that? And one of the things about Michael, obviously, as you heard him speak, a master of wit, sarcasm to make a point and brutally make a point, and it's usually necessary, and it's an honest point. Now, I got straightened out on the story here earlier today, but I want to tell you about it because this is the type of sense of humor that Michael Katz has, and he never lets anything go. He's got a great memory. The great Pat Putnam, we were at a fight in Reno, I don't remember who it was on HBO. And when I do celebrity introductions, when you're at home, you don't see the celebrity introductions because usually I have to do it when it's a videotape because HBO talent they don't have headphones, so you can't interfere with any background noise. So they tell me, if you got a minute 30 to do celebrity introductions, I introduce them. Now, Reno was a city where Joe DiMaggio used to like to come and go to the fights, and the owners of the hotels would fly him in with a great answer. And this was in 1991. The 50th anniversary of the 56 game hitting streak. And the legendary Pat Putnam is at ringside. And as a joke, because he remembered once that DiMaggio was there and Joe would always hide, he never was getting himself known. And he didn't get introduced at a fight previously. So Pat Putnam says, "Buffer, you forgot to introduce Joe DiMaggio." So I thought, "Oh, I can't let this happen twice where he doesn't get introduced." I turn right around, I've got about 30 seconds left, and I say, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 50th anniversary of one of the greatest moments in sports," and I describe, and I end up saying, "The Yankee Clipper Joe DiMaggio, standing ovation, the place goes crazy." And meanwhile, Putnam is like, "Oh my God, he's not here." It was a joke. The promoter, who was helping me, "I gotta get his autograph. For the next 20 years, every time I see Katz, "Hey Buffer, how about DiMaggio?" Never lets it go. First, "Hi Michael, how about DiMaggio?" Never lets it go. Mark Too Sharp Johnson. I was privileged to introduce him a few times, not enough. He is a fighter who, and it's like when he was in the ring, he was like Rembrandt and Michelangelo. An artist, just painting a masterpiece, a brilliant fighter, and in his weight class, flyweight, super flyweight, was almost all exclusively Asian fighters, Latino fighters, small fighters. Mark is the first African American to capture a world title as a flyweight. 28 KOs. And one thing about that division where it's the little guys, they're all good. I remember when Michael Barbahal came out of the 88 Olympics and he was fighting 4-rounders against guys that were like 2 and 7. These guys were fantastic because they're all little. They were all the guys that were picked on by their brothers and sisters and classmates and their tough as nails. And it was just a privilege. The few times I got to introduce you and see you were absolutely fantastic. And there are some fighters, there are some athletes that when they walk into a room, everybody stops. And Thomas Hearns is one of those guys. He's got that thing like, you say Tommy, and when he's in boxing, when you say Tommy, it's like if you said Muhammad, of course you know who that is. But you just say Tommy, there's only one guy. It's Thomas Hitman Hearns. And he could knock you out cold with either hand. One punch, either hand. James Black Gold Shoulder. Tornado players, God bless him. Like Michael Cass said, almost killed him. That one punch that ended the fight, unbelievable. And you know, Akbar Muhammad, a buddy of Al and I from the ESPN days when he worked at Top Rank Boxing, he once told me that Tommy feared nobody, ever, nobody. And if you told him when he was a middleweight that he was going to have to fight the heavyweight champion of the world, give up 60, 70 pounds, he would just ask two questions. How much am I getting paid? And when does training camp start? No fear. And Tommy, for me, to be here, period, is an honor. But to be on the same stage the day that you get inducted, I love it. It's just, that's what I like. Enough about these guys. Well, it all began in October of 1992. A young lady by the name of Toby Berlin, she was executive director of Playboy Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. And I didn't know who hired the ring announcers, so I thought I would contact all the hotels and their entertainment directors and everything. So she got this letter from this guy that said, I want to be a ring announcer, and it was a pitch. But she thought, yeah, why not? She gave the letter to and asked Phil Alessi and his right-hand guy at the time, Mr. Brad Jacobs, to take a look at me, and they think I can do it, give me a chance. And they did. It was Tuesday night fights on USA Cable, and you know, I wasn't bad. I was horrible. It was a disaster. I mean, I was nervous. I was the worst ever, and it was another 5 months until Rose Patterson worked for Frank Hill, and they came up and I said, do you think you can do any better? And I got a chance. And the first fight that I did was on CBS at that stage. It was in March 1993. And Marlon Starling, who was here, fought a guy by the name of Juan the Fred Barrett, and he knocked him out. And it's been pretty steady work since then. It was a pretty good deal. I started announcing all the Top Rank Boxing on ESPN shows. That was the #1 sports cable show at the time, and in the eastern part of the country, and that led to ABC, CBS, NBC, Showtime, and HBO, and I actually was the first ring announcer to say, it's Showtime. I didn't come up with the line, David actually came up with it. I used to say, it's Showtime, and then I said, let's get ready to rumble, because I didn't want to lose that line. Little boxing trivia you can all take home with it. Now, in a few years, I found myself traveling all over the country announcing fights. When Mike Tyson became heavyweight champion in the late 80s, that was indeed a big break for me. And my career really took off. And somehow, like you say, we did manage to survive the 80s. And people say, when are you going to write a book? When I retire so I can tell the truth. But no, I'll leave you out of that. It'll cost you. And I found myself introducing starting lineups for Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA championship games, World Series. It's just been a great ride. The phone never stopped ringing. I had to bring my brother Bruce Buffer on to help me out man the phones, because it's pretty hard to say, well, I want to get this much. Bruce is a pretty good businessman, and he took over eventually and became my business partner to help with the trademark. Now, a big question always is, how did the trademark happen? We all remember Muhammad Ali at the classic weigh-ins in Madison Square Garden, and I'm looking so pretty, and my waist down, I'm ready to rumble. Ready to rumble. Crazy news. Sal Marciano on ESPN. We had a lot of fights in Atlantic City, and Sal would actually say, well, let's get ready to rumble from Resorts International, or we're ready to rumble from Atlantic City. It sounded good, and so, I started to say that, and Sal continued on with his new sports anchor job with television in New York. It wasn't with us anymore, and left me as the only one saying, let's get ready to rumble. Kind of fine-tuned it, and that's what you're here today. You know, I tried man your battle stations and crickets out there. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelt. So I stayed with Let's Get Ready to Rumble. A great friend of mine passed away, Jody Murray, an entertainer, told me around 1988 or 89. He said, when you say let's get ready to rumble, shut the hell up. And this guy really knew show business and timing and everything. And his point was, if you see the old tapes on ESPN Classic, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble 10 rounds of boxing in the heavyweight division. I didn't want to really seem as though I was trying to make attention to myself. But, you know, I wanted that hook, basically, to let everybody know it's time to be the stars of the show. And the reason was, for many years, once TV came on the scene, the ring announcers were introducing all their buddies on the commission. Then it got out of hand. WBC, the WBA, the chairman, the state commission, the executive director, 3 judges, 4 doctors. Now the fighters had just come into the ring with all this music, all this electricity, all this excitement, and we just sucked the air out of it and killed it. So I wanted something that would be like, gentlemen, start your engines. Everybody knows what that means. The race is about to start. This meant you were going to meet the stars of the show. Let's have some energy back in the room and meet the guys that really deserve all the applause. And that's really what the reasoning was for that. Now another thing I'm always asked is, what's the best fight I ever saw? Real simple. February 1989, Roberto Duran, Iran Barkley. Iran Barkley had just captured the middleweight title from my great Hall of Fame classmate here, Tommy Hearns. And it was a blizzard. You remember this one? 19 inches of snow. Atlantic City's an island. We don't even know how the people got there. They were hanging from the ceilings. Pardon me, a total sellout. Duran gets a knockdown, combination knockdown in the 10th or 11th year history, somewhere in there. A 2-point swing and wins a split decision to become middleweight champion of the world. Just the best fight I ever saw, and I've seen a lot of great fights, and that's right up there. The most exciting moment I recall, and I know Michael Moore is behind me, but I'm sorry. He was beating the hell out of George Foreman for 10 straight rounds. The fight was over, people were starting to leave, and then the noise after and then the noise was unbelievable. And as a moment, because of George being about 132 years old at the time, the geezer was heavyweight champion of the world again. Just a great moment. And you know, and for me, there's that the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. You know, I've known Michael Moore since he was 19 years old. He was like something like 29-0 with 29 knockouts as a light heavyweight champion. He moved up, became heavyweight champion of the world. You know, I knew his family. That my heart's broken, and then you're just as excited for the other guy. That, you know, that's kind of what makes boxing great. Is, you know, you love a guy in one corner, and you find out you love the other guy too. You just want to see a really good fight. But that was a great moment. I'm always asked, where are the best fans? It's a 3-way tie for me. And the best fans, I think, are in Germany, the UK, and Bismarck, North Dakota. And I'll tell you why for each. Fellow Hall of Famer, Wilfred Sauerland, started to bring big fights to Germany. And for many years, when you do the introduction in Germany, they would just sit there and wait and applaud. He had Henry Munsk as light heavyweight champion. I started to do the introductions. The crowds became huge. They were filling up arenas. And they became knowledgeable, loyal, and they just, to this day, it's too bad you don't get to see them all, but, you know, 45 and 50,000 fans pack a stadium to see the Klitschko's fight. Marco Hook, who most Americans aren't familiar with, packs them in. They just have a great deal of knowledge, and they are major fans. UK fans for 100 years, they've been insane, and we all know that. But they are loyal. When we have fights in the States, whether it's Ricky Hatton or Joe Calzaghe, it's almost all British fans here. When I would do a fight in Manchester, and there was a guy 4 fights down on the undercard, and he was from Yorkshire. 2,000 fans from Yorkshire would show up. Great loyalty, great feeling in the ring. The noise is fantastic. In Bismarck, North Dakota, the reason I mentioned that is great fans. Just the 3 times we did fights there, I have never heard anything like this in my life. Virgil Hill captured the silver medal, then only became light heavyweight champion, top ranked promoter, and we went in there with ABC Wide World Sports, and he defended his title. And I think it was only 8,000 fans in the arena, but it was so loud and so emotional that my ears just burned, and I never forgot that feeling, and it was just great. So right behind him, of course, I think San Juan and Manila is pretty close for noisy fans. But Bismarck, North Dakota, I loved it. So how many championship fights have I done? Another question I always get. I have no idea. Because when I started doing this, it was just fun. I lived in Philadelphia. I had to just drive to Atlantic City, 60 miles away. I never dreamed I would be doing this for a living. So I really wish I had kept track of that. And I'm always asked who's my favorite fighter. Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson. I don't even have to say anything. That pretty much says it. There's one person I want to recognize as probably the most important individual in my success. And without a few months' experience in the ring, Bob Arum, in front of a sold-out Madison Square Garden in June 1983. Now, remember, I was terrible in October 1982, stumped the joint out, somehow got a chance again 5 months later, so now it's only 3 months that I experienced I really have the ring announcer. And I convinced Bob to let me be the ring announcer for Roberto Duran, once again coming back from the dead, to challenge for the junior middleweight title against Davey Moore. Madison Square Garden was sold out. It was electric, it was exciting, and I can honestly say it was like a turning point in my career for me mentally. I don't think I was ever really nervous again after that. It was just something about it that was unreal. Again, Roberto Duran captured the title with a TKO. Actually, Jay Edson stopped the fight. The referee was so bad. The late great Jay Edson stepped up onto the ring apron and said, "You got to stop the fight." And a great night. And Bob, for that, and then sticking with me for almost 30 years now, including last night, you've done a lot for me. I really appreciate it. Love you, Bob. Wish you were here right now. Now, in boxing, I've been lucky to meet heads of state, monarchs, movie stars, sports superstars. But a lot of the people I think about today are those who aren't with us. The late great Teddy Brenner, all-time great matchmaker, who sat down with me in a room the night of that Duran-Davey Moore fight and gave me a list of fighters to introduce as celebrity intros, including Muhammad Ali, and Willie Mays was there. It just helped lift the roof off the garden. Something like that you don't forget. Irving Rudd, the publicist, the late Dan Duva, who, after refusing to use me, eventually did start using me for his big fights. Dennis Dolchin, a good friend of mine, just left us too young an age. And a gentleman that I was hoping was going to be here for a friend to us all, Bert Randolph Schiller, who passed away a few months ago. Two of my best friends, Arthur Curry and Dr. Frank Ryan, are not here. Wish they were. Yeah, almost made it. 96 years old. And, but I got my good wife Christine here, and thanks to her, she keeps me focused, happy, healthy, and so thanks for keeping me young and helping make me love life more than ever. And I really appreciate it. The International Boxing Hall of Fame is a magnificent shrine to all of boxing's greats. So many legends and heroes that we always remember, but I hope we keep sight of those who will never get here. You know, there's always a trainer that never captured lightning in a bottle with the gifted kid that could take him to the top, or the small town promoter that gave fans exciting competitive fights, but just stayed in the Midwest or wherever, and did a great job like all of us. And then there's all the great fighters out there who never got the big break. There might have been another Mark Johnson or a Thomas Hearns, but maybe an injury, a torn ACL that never got surgically repaired, or just mismanagement early in his career, so he was never taken seriously. And kind of like the unknown soldier, I hope that maybe someday here at the Hall of Fame we can have a little spot for all those guys that are out there, that bring us to the arena, they're not the second name that gets introduced. They're like the winner does. But they've toiled, they've worked hard, and they deserve recognition, just like all of us who are really lucky enough to be here. When we talk about those guys, we like to use humor about the fighters that we kind of think, well, they weren't that good. Like, have you heard about Kid Kendall? One blow and he's out. A fighter that had to retire because he had bad hands because the ref kept stepping on him all the time. And, we love to have humor with that, but just keep in mind, there's guys out there that work really hard, and let's always remember them. I'd like to, in closing, I would like to dedicate most of this to some of the names that I mentioned that really helped me with my career. But a portion of that dedication, I'd like to dedicate to a guy in New York by the name of Giovanni Addonizio. And he's better known as Johnny Addy. And I think everybody my age that ever watched the Friday Night Fights, while they loved listening to Don Burnley, there was something really great about hearing Johnny Addy say the words, "Championship of the World." It's legendary, and we gotta have Johnny Addy's family here when he gets his honor someday. Now, thank you, Ed Brophy, for your wonderful staff and the great volunteers here at the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I want to thank all the people in Canastota, New York, for making this the ideal home for this great event every year. Thank you to all the fans all year long that go to the fights, that watch the pay-per-view shows and spend their money. Last thing still. But you know what? It was a good fight. We're going to overcome it. It's a great sport. And so let me just say this. For the thousands in attendance and the millions around the world who wish they could be here, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!